Wow guys, I think we broke the game.
7K Dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at new comps for Power Up Dungeon. I'm sure these comps will be much faster than your usual status effect comps, and that was something that I actually touched on in my previous Power Up Dungeon video. Those were more beginner oriented, but now I think most people have the right heroes already, so we're gonna use these comps for future farming as well, and they will be very fast for your progress. So for Fire Dungeon, I'm actually using Pascal, Lina, Miho, Biscuit, and Ariel. So Lina is on the block set with HP percentage main stats mainly. This is to allow her to heal better, and you would probably want that, especially if your gears or on your other heroes are not well built yet. For Biscuit, she's on a 3-piece block set. I haven't had the chance, or rather I had other priorities to ultimate enhance, so I left her like that, but she also performs fine just with 3-piece. For Ariel, 2-piece block set, and for Miho, I actually ultimate enhance her for the event. She's on the crit set with very terrible armors. Okay, don't really mind her gears, I'm sure you have better gears. For Pascal, all skills enhanced. He is a very important priority for skill enhancement, as I mentioned in my skill enhancement video. And then you want to have crit set on him, or if you do have the Avenger set, that also works. For his armors, make sure you have all attack percent, and then for his gears, for his weapons, you want something like crit rate or crit damage. Especially if you're the Avenger set, you don't have the luxury of having that high of a crit rate percentage, because I'm using the crit set. So as you can see, his crit rate is actually 71%. That is actually pretty high. He only needs 50%, okay, of crit rate. I'm also very lucky that my pieces have quite a lot of weakness hit chance. So along with Biscuit's 54%, yes, I did enhance her skill, 54% weakness hit rate increase, my Pascal is actually hitting 94% in that sense. So I'm going to show you guys the global manual run first. This was one of the earlier clears that I had, and I'm using Miho here for weakness hit damage increase. Usually I will buff with Biscuit first, and then I'll cast Miho's bottom skill to land magic vulnerability, followed by Lina's top skill to buff Pascal. Usually I use Lina's buff last because of the way the turn count works. I want to ensure that Pascal will be able to retain the buffs for both of his skills, one before reset and one after reset. And as you can see, Pascal does huge damage on the fire element. It's actually one of the easiest dungeons where you can use this strategy. So this is the auto run I had on Korea server. This Pascal is definitely more built out. I'm actually using Victoria here instead of Miho because back then I didn't have Miho. And then Asura here is for defense decrease. You can actually use Ariel to do that as well. Okay, you don't really need Asura. You can actually put in another buffer if you want. But because this is an auto run, you can actually do it very quickly also. You don't even need to use Asura's bottom skill, in fact. You can actually just use 2 skills. Now for Water Dungeon, I'm using Feng Yan for freeze immunity, Biscuit, Chloe here for the unable to recover debuff, Lina, and Pascal. For gears wise, I don't really want to go through those that I've already shown, so I'll show you guys the gears for heroes that are new to the comp. Basically, Feng Yan is not ultimate enhanced yet, okay, and then Chloe here is going to be on the block set, also not ultimate enhanced yet, and only on a 5-piece armor piece. So for the water element dungeon, usually I will buff again with Biscuit, and then I will cast the unable to recover immediately so that any damage that he is going to take from now on will not be healed back by him. So then after that, I'm going to use Lina's top skill to buff Pascal. This is to again ensure that after reset, Pascal still has Lina's buff, because if you delay this or you use Lina's buff too early because it's only 3 turns, and then you end up realizing that Pascal's second hit is going to do much lesser because of the gap between the 2 skills are too far apart. And basically you just need to cycle these skills. If your team is actually taking too much damage, then of course heal up with Lina. You'll realize that because the water element dungeon Pookie has very high HP, so in that sense your damage output isn't going to look as fantastic as the fire one. so you have to slowly chip him down. If you have already built up your Feng Yan for Castle Rush, Feng Yan can also do decent damage here, and he also has a an active defense down which you can use. So it's actually also another skill you can insert in. But I actually didn't do that because I felt that I just wanted to cycle through Pascal skills as quickly as you can before the turn count gets too high and the Pookie becomes berserk and does too much damage to you. Biscuit's buff actually has reset, so you can actually reuse it, okay, to buff Pascal just in case he doesn't land the weakness hit and then his damage is, suffered because of that. So just for safety precaution, I chose to buff with Biscuit. This is the auto Korean run. Same team basically, because for this dungeon, your hero choices are quite limited. So you can see the skill queue here. Instead of buffing Pascal first, I actually use the unable to recover first. So this is something you can adjust accordingly. So of course, this Pascal is definitely way stronger than my global one because he's actually on the damage dealt boss damage set. So the numbers you see here are definitely going to be a lot higher. And this is how you do efficient dungeon runs. Next up, we have the Earth Element dungeon. So over here, as you can see, I'm using Espada. Espada here is doing the same job as Miho to basically cast magic vulnerability. So it's really up to you if you want to use Espada or you want to use Miho. Miho actually has a shorter turn count, but Miho has a passive that buffs weakness hit damage. So I'm going to try with Miho here. Espada only applies 5 turn magic vulnerability. So in the event that you are planning to buff your Pascal quite a bit with a lot of buffs, then use Espada because that debuff will last longer and is better for you. But if you are planning to go for a fast and short run, especially if your Pascal is pretty decked out, then you can go with Miho. Miho here only has a 3-turn debuff, but she will buff your damage to quite a good amount. Same skill as the Fire Element dungeon, so I buff and then I debuff with Miho and then I buff again with Lina, then fire off both of Pascal's skills. For this particular Earth Element dungeon, he has very high defense, so again your damage may not seem amazing, but that's just because the boss is built that way. If you are low on health here, you have a tank here to increase your block rate and defense, so no worries there. And then you also have Lina there for the heals. So for this particular dungeon, I don't think it does big damage, so you don't have to worry too much. Again, I went for the safety precaution just to demonstrate to you guys it's okay to be safe, okay? And then you can proceed to continue buffing with Biscuit again, going through the entire cycle to ensure that your damage is high enough, because I understand that if your Pascal, doesn't have enough crit rate or doesn't have enough weakness hit, his damage is going to be very significantly lower and you may need to take extra turns to then kill the boss. I'm sorry that there's no volume here because I kind of recorded the video without realizing that my game audio was off. So yeah, anyway, it's okay. There's audio for the Korean auto versions. Here I'm using Rachel, but you don't really need to use Rachel at all. Rachel here is for the defense down and also for the physical vulnerability, but I'm not using a physical DPS, so it's completely fine. So this skill queue, I would say, is a pretty safe one because I'm also leaning on Rachel's burn for damage, but I don't think we need to rely on that anymore. So if you want to use Shane, it's also fine, but Pascal is definitely the much better DPS for fast clears because he can rotate his skills very quickly. Next up, we have the Light Element dungeon. In this case, on my global account, I'm using Kagura. I UE her for the event as well, and I'm using her in PvP, so stay tuned for the Kagura review video. If you don't want to use Kagura, you can actually use Yonhee. Both her skills has 3 hits, so it's actually very efficient in clearing the shields of the boss. And then you also have Eileen here, who does multi-hits on both attacks, so that's very good. Karma here also has 3 hits on both attacks, so that's also another option you can have. And in fact, Karma can buff your entire team's tankiness. Other than that, you can also go with the Ray that we all got for free. Ray actually has the same amount of hits as Kagura if you still have Ray, that is. So Ray is also possible. But I mean, for this video, we're gonna just have Kagura here for some freshness. And the other team members are pretty much the same. You might be thinking, why am I using Yui and not Lina? Yui is actually for magic attack down, and this will really help, especially if your team or your heroes are not well built. Like my Chloe here is only on a 2-piece. So my Yui here as well, her gears are absolutely trash, all 5 stars and not even HP based. So very, very bad. I need to change this up. Yeah, but basically you get the idea, because these heroes may not be used so commonly, so you may not be Yuing them, you may not be ultimate enhancing them. So the best way is to reduce the boss's damage as much as you can, and that's why I'm using Yui instead of Lina here. Same skill queue will be to use Joker's bottom skill first to remove 7 shields, and then use Joker's top skill to remove the boss's magic attack increase so that you will take less damage. You realize that later you'll see Kagura taking more damage than my other units, which is quite surprising. But I guess the boss was just aiming for Kagura, so yeah, pretty unfortunate there. But I mean, it's also okay, because as long as Joker doesn't die, I'm good. Your healing will be a little lower for this team, so I'm using Lucy as the main healer. If your Lucy is geared on defense and defense percentage, you shouldn't have a very big problem at all. Take note that Chloe's skill, bottom skill, is also a 3-hit skill, so that's why she's also very good here, not just for shock immunity. So most of the skills here we are using are multi-hit, and as you can see, it cycles very quickly back to Joker. So just make sure that your Joker is alive, and then you can cycle his skills whenever they are ready, or rather you should use his skills whenever they are ready. And then once you are done, you can use Kagura's skills. Sometimes when I fight this boss, I actually like to preserve the DPS's skills, aka like Yonhee or Kagura or Tio. You can even use Tio, I forgot, as only after the shield is down, so that I can quickly nuke him as much as I can. Because if the shields are down and you're using Joker to attack the boss, I mean, that is gonna take a while. So this is the auto run. Same thing here. As you can see, I'm using Yonhee instead. This was recorded very early, and I'm using Evan, which is not the best choice. So as you can see, the strategy I went for this particular auto run was more defensive, because I cannot be sure at that time that, you know, how much damage my units were taking. Yonhee actually can still die from this boss's attacks, especially when your Joker doesn't manage to buff remove the boss in time, and he has a lot of magic attack. He will kill Yonhee very quickly also. So I went for the safer auto comp, which is Yui and Evan, but really quite unnecessary, I have to say. Skill rotation wise, it's really just cycling the main skills that do multi-hit, and also occasionally casting the shield. As you can see, Yonhee is really dying. My other rare units are not even taking that much damage, even Joker. So I mean, that's quite the difference between a T12 and a T2 hero. Even a T12 rare unit can survive a lot better. Next up, we have the Dark Element Dungeon. I'm using this team also with Pascal at the back. Some of you may be surprised with Chloe here, but Chloe really here is just to have additional debuff cleanse. My Leo is not ultimate enhanced, he only has 2 block pieces. So very importantly here, I buff with Biscuit again, and then I'm immediately ready for Curse Wave, which is the defense reduction skill. You have to cleanse this, otherwise your team is going to take a lot of damage. So make sure you cleanse this, and then you can cast Leo's bottom skill, which is an active defense down skill. So you have the passive and the active ready, and then you can just fire off with Pascal's skills. Do not use Chloe's top skill yet. Okay, it is safe for debuff cleansing later on, because you realize that the boss actually has a cooldown faster than Lucy's cleanse. So Chloe is here for the second cleansing later on, and then you can cycle between Chloe's cleanse and Lucy's cleanse whenever the boss uses Curse Wave. One good thing about having Lucy here as a healer as well is that she can reduce Pascal's skill cooldown, so you can actually quickly cycle Pascal's skills even faster here. So again, I use Leo's bottom skill for defense down, but one good thing as well is the bleed that he can cast along with that skill. So the bleed itself is going to harm the boss in terms of HP and chip off the boss's HP quite significantly over time. And then you have Biscuit's buff, and yeah, basically, that's about it. As you can see, you don't even need to reach the third cleanse basically. The only reason for that is because the boss is so low on HP, so I decided to just go ahead and kill him. But if your damage output is actually not high enough and you need to go for a third round, then you may want to cleanse with Lucy before using more Pascal skills. So in this Korean auto, I'm actually using Lina here and not Chloe, because I believe that if you can sustain your team, it's also possible to clear this boss without the second cleansing. Okay, the skill queue, skill rotation is pretty much the same. But because I'm confident in my damage, as you can see, so it only takes about 2 hits to clear the boss. I didn't even bother using Lucy's cleanse. But if you were to play this like how I did before, then make sure you have Lucy's cleanse as the second skill instead, and that will be able to help you preserve your team much better. The bleed really helped to chip off the boss's damage, such that you only needed Pascal to do 2 hits to clear the boss. And last but not least, we have the gold dungeon. So this particular team I'm using is actually Asura, Miho, Asura for active defense down, and then Miho here for weakness hit damage and magic vulnerability. You can actually use Ariel instead of Asura, which is probably better because Ariel here can also increase magic damage for Pascal. And then you can swap Miho out for Victoria, who can actually buff magic attack and also land magic vulnerability, but instead it's 5 turns. So it really depends on your preference here. I will show you guys this failed run because I actually buffed with Victoria first, and then you will realize that there's so many buffs and debuffs from this team alone that time ran out, and the boss actually just killed my whole team. So it's very important to keep in mind for this particular boss how many skills you can afford to use, and you have to be able to nuke the boss within this set amount of skills. So what I did instead then was to just leave out the magic attack boost and just buff with Biscuit, land the debuff with Victoria, and then buff with Lina. Thereafter, I just fire off Pascal skills. Oh yeah, I forgot to use to also learn defense down with Ariel. So 4 skills were used before Pascal uses his skill. Okay, and then Pascal will reset his skill and then fire off again. Basically 2 hits, but you use 4 skills before that. And this is another team that I use. I showed this in the Miho review video. Miho here is for weakness hit damage increase. Joker here is for crit damage increase. So these 2 multipliers increase. You will see that Pascal actually does more damage than the previous team I used. And because there's so much boost, I can actually safely just use a 3-turn magic vulnerability debuff instead of a 5-turn, because you will be able to do more damage and kill the boss faster anyway. This is the Korean auto run. I'm using Espada here for the same purpose of magic vulnerability, and I'm using Lina here for her buff. Okay, make sure again to use Lina's buff as close as possible to Pascal's skills so that you can make full use of that buff even after Pascal reset his top skill. And as you can see, this Pascal does huge damage. Especially at T6, you can actually focus on having crit damage for Pascal instead of crit rate. So yep, I hope this video helped in terms of showing you some new teams you can use for power-up dungeons and to farm them much more efficiently. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Stay tuned for more videos. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much and see you!